Hello friends, welcome back. Ever wondered how Angular components talk to each other? So in this video, we'll break down the input and the output with a real world example. So come, let's dive in. The application that you're seeing is the one which is already built and deployed here. And what we are going to do in this video is, if you go to the course, you'll be able to see this technologies listed, and based on what you choose there will be a list of available tests that is going to be displayed here. So if I choose Angular, there are some tests available, so which is coming here. So we have implemented the input and output concept, which is the parent and child relationship, and that is what you'll be learning. So we have implemented the parent-child relationship, and that is what you'll be learning in this video. And this video is part of the Smart Certify application video series. That's the full stack development video series, and this is episode 14. So come, let's dive in. In order to get the code, go to the github.com/learnsmartcoding, and under the repository, if you search with the Smart Certify, you'll be able to filter out the repositories related to this video series, and we are referring to the Smart Certify UI Angular 19. So go to this and take the code, and come, let's get into the coding right now. So in the previous video, what we did is we added the routing for the course, and when they land on the course page, we were implementing the Angular service, which means it is going to talk to the API, get the data, and that data is what we have displayed here. But we are going to change this page into this page. Okay, so that is what we are going to do. Okay, so now under the source, there's something called assets. So under the assets, I actually copy pasted 10 different files. Each one is like for representing each technology. So under the technology folder, you'll be able to see 10 SVG files. That's just for the demo purpose, and those 10 SVG file is what you're seeing here. So we're going to skip this now, and then let's go to this app. Under the components, we created two components called courses and tech filter in the last video, right? So under the tech filter, we are going to implement this logic, and under the course, we're going to implement the whole logic, meaning the whole page is a parent and this is the child. So let's first build the top portion. So I'm going to go to this tech filter and do a piece of logic. So I'm going to minimize this so it's easy to visible. So I'm going to have a variable called tech data. That's an array of a field. So an array of objects, I would say, and the object has two properties called name and image. You can also write like this, or you can define an interface like under the model. You can actually define an interface called export interface tech details, like whatever name you want, and have the properties called name and image, and it's basically tech data as the array of that property. Okay, so all what I am doing here is the name property will have the name, and image property will have the image which is sitting under our assets folder. Okay, so that is what this variable is doing. Now what we will do is, I'm going to rename this tech data into tech list because that makes sense, right? So I have done that, and then so now we go to this HTML and I place a piece of code. Basically it is a div. Inside that, I wanted to repeat this div n number of times. So I'm using this inbuilt directory called ng-for, looping through this tech list, and for each tech list I'm assigning the source property for the image and for the alternate thing as a name. So if the image is not there, name is what it is going to display, and in a paragraph I'm displaying the name. So basically it is going to go through these items and display the image and the name here. Okay, and you can see clearly that currently the ng-for is not recognized. That's because it clearly says ng directory ng-for is under the common module, and common module needs to be imported. So we will say common module. The moment you import this, you see this error went away. And you should also understand we're using Angular 19 standalone components, which means we have no ng modules in throughout our application, and under the imports, you need to import the necessary module for each component. Okay, so that is why common module is imported. Now we wanted to take a look how this application, this component is working, right? So I'm going to copy this as a selector, go to this course. We don't want this. Instead, we will use the component. So if I import this, basically what is happening, it is coming under the imports of this tech filter component. Okay, so I'm going to take a look at how this is working. So let's take a look on how this works. If I go to this course, if you find this kind of a 404, though the image URL looks correct, all what you do is you need to just stop this server, Control C, and rerun the application as ngserve. So after rerunning, let's take a look if everything looks good. Okay, so even after restarting, it is not working. So let's investigate this. So the reason I'm showing all of these errors, this is very common that you'll also encounter. So these errors are intentionally showed that as a developer, you should understand why these kind of issues are coming. Okay, so what's happening is it is trying to refer to the assets, but when the application is running, the assets are not exposed, like it is not exported. So for example, if you go to this angular.json and if you search for assets, there will be two assets here. Right now it is only referring to the default configuration, but we have something called assets. So under assets, any of these things are never exposed. So what you have to do is you just need to add that assets here. So if you come here and do this, and now you restart the application. So if I restart now and if I refresh this, you see this image started coming, right? Image started coming, and this shows us, the images are coming as per the logic that we wrote. Now the div, if you try, the div will be coming like one by one in the horizontal. If you try, the div will be coming like one by one in the vertical, but right now it is in the horizontal, right? The reason because it is in horizontal is, if we go to this component, I added the necessary CSS. So that is what it is making as a horizontal. Okay, so don't get confused if it is not coming for you. You just use the CSS that I gave. Everything else is same. So I'm going to close it. Now, here is what we wanted to learn in this video. We are going to learn input. So right now, the data is here in this component, which is hard coded, right? I want this component to be independent of what the data is here. So in order to do so, what we will do is we will introduce something called input. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove this. Okay, I'm going to remove this, and in front of the variable, all what you have to do is you have to say @input. The moment you put this, you see this input is added, and that's coming under the Angular core. Now we are saying this is input, which means this can be somebody can supply this, and we wanted to know what is the type. So the type here is exactly the type that we are sending. So this is what the type. So it's an array of list of properties. So this is the object, and it's an array of that object. So each object will have name and image, and it's an array, and we are initializing with empty array. Okay, now this becomes an input. Got it? Now this one is still input and empty array. So right now it is an empty array, so there is nothing to display. If you go back to the UI, that's why there is no data is coming. Okay, now what we are going to do is we are going to go to this course component, and we will pass that from this component. So course component will become a parent component, and from the parent component, all what we are going to do is we are going to pass the data to the child component. So I'm going to copy paste whatever we just deleted there. We can say tech list. Okay, so this is a tech list. Now how do you, or let's put this as tech data so that we can differentiate. So there's a tech data here, and how do you pass this data to the input? So if we go to this tech filter component, this is the input, right? So copy this, go to this course, and here pay attention here. If you want to pass data to the child component, okay, you need to use the square bracket and use the name of the property, and here it is tech data. So tech data is going to go into this, which means if you go now to this course, you will start seeing this. Why? Because from the parent component we pass the data, child component received the information, it started displaying the UI. Got it? So now you learned how input is working, which is from parent to the child. Now what is our idea is, when you click on this, okay, the child, this is in child, right? So when somebody clicks on that, we need to inform the parent that Angular was clicked, React was clicked, Azure was clicked, something is clicked. What is clicked? That is what we need to inform them. So here is what the output comes into picture. So from parent to child is the input, from child to parent is called output. So you decorate with the decorator called @output, and we will give a name. So filter courses, just a name. You can use whatever name you want, and that will be new event emitter of string. So basically event emitter is what you need to do, and this is the return type. So here when we click, we are sending back a string as an output. If you want to send this whole thing as output, you can do that. It's absolutely fine based on what you wanted to send back to the parent. In our case, we just send the name of the technology that was clicked. That's why it is string. If you want to pass the whole object, you can just put that as a return type. So now what we will do, we will write a method called select technology, okay, and where this method is expecting a technology name, and what you have to do is we have to say this output dot emit. We need to emit the one which came. So how this is how we will know what is came? So from the UI, okay, what we are going to do is when somebody clicks, we need to raise an event called click event, and we will say the name of this select technology. So select technology of tech. We are not passing tech dot name. Okay, so whenever somebody clicks on the div, we will pass the name what was clicked. It will come here, it will emit this. Now it is emitting, right? Now how the parent will know? Simple. So if you go to this to the parent component where the child is listed here, here is what again you need to pay attention. For input it's a square bracket, and for the output it's called event. So for any event it is always parenthesis. Okay, we will name the one which is listed there. So filter courses is the name which is here, right? This name should not change. So this name equal to, it is going to call a function. So on tech selected, and then we will pass the event. That's it. Do we have this method? We don't have it. We will write this method. Okay, so we don't have this method, we will write this method. So I come here to the component, I write this method which is accepting the string, and I'm just logging it. Okay, so let's test this out. I'm going to open the developer tool F12 in Windows. Let's go to this console, clean up everything, go to course. So far good. I'm clicking this, you see this Angular selected. Whatever I'm clicking, everything is being displayed here, right? So now what we have to do is we need to filter the data. So we already have something called course, and the course needs to be filtered with based on the technology that is coming. So here what we will do, we will first have a variable called technology selected, which is a string and which is nothing but a default value called string. Okay, so that is what we can do, or we can assign a value called Azure. Okay, anything. So let's assume that. Okay, so maybe let's assume nothing is assigned. So I come here, I say this dot selected technology equal to this tech. Okay, so I come here, I say technology selector is equal to tech. Okay, now what we will do is we have something called course which has every single data. So in order to have the filtered list, let's go to the course. This is the course, right? So we will assign another variable, okay, temporary variable to hold the filtered course. So filtered course is also array of courses initializing with an empty array, but that's again a filtered course. So what we will do, we will come to this location where, okay, so now what we will do, we will apply the logic. So this dot apply filters. So we are going to create a method. So control period will give you the method. Okay, so what we are going to do is when this technology is selected, we need to apply a logic. So we will do this. Okay, so we are going to filter the data. So let's say filtered is a variable and it's using a let, and so we are saying course dot filter, where given the titles lowercase should match with whatever the name was coming. So technology dot selected is nothing but, for example, Angular, .NET, right? So we're putting it to lowercase and then we're trying to filter with the incoming whole the bunch of courses. Once we have the filtered information, what we will do, we will assign this data back to the variable called filtered course. Okay, so now the filtered course has the filtered data. For example, so let's say, so if I do this, if I click this, see some data is coming. If React, there is no data, that's why nothing is coming. For Azure, something is there, right? So this is what we are going to do, but we haven't got this level. Okay, so we're going to build with this data, we're going to build this page, I mean this component, right, this HTML. So for based on this data, we're going to build this kind of a UI. Okay, so what I did is I just added a div. Okay, so basically same thing. So for each filtered course, I'm using this div to be populated. Okay, so when we go through this, we are saying title, description, and there are number of questions available for this exam and a button. Okay, so that's it. I didn't do any other magic. So let's go to this one. If I click on this, I'm going to remove this. See, this nice UI started coming. Okay, I didn't do anything else. So now what else is pending? So now what I wanted to do is, if you look at this, there are like 157 questions. All of these things are fine. There are 0 questions also, right? Now this button is enabled. I wanted to disable this button, and whenever there's a checkbox. So if you look at this, there's a check show only available test. So I'm going to add this, and when the user is checking this, only the tests which are available here will start displaying. So I'm going to paste a small piece of logic here. So I added a div, and what that div is doing is it has an input which is a checkbox. See, type is checkbox, and we have a ng model, two-way binding. So this ng model, remember this square bracket inside the parenthesis, ball inside the football court. You can remember like that. So we have a variable called only available test. Okay, so only available test is a variable that's a boolean variable. Okay, so I'm going to add a boolean variable here, only available test, which is by default false, which means checkbox is not checked. Okay, so if that is there, like that is what the binding is happening. Okay, and right now there is error because it doesn't recognize this. So for this you have to come here and input form module. The moment you import the form module, see, this error went away. So whenever there's a change happening, we will apply this, we will call this function, and here we need to filter one more content. What we need to filter here is we need to do this logic. So basically what we're saying, hey, if the checkbox is checked, filter the course on top of this filter, and questions available, like the number of questions, at least it should be more than 0. Okay, that is what this means. So now, having said that, you can look at this. All of this is coming including 0, and if I check this, the 0 has gone. Okay, same thing. If I uncheck this, everything will come. If I check this, it'll go. It's going to filter that. Okay, so now we learned the input and the output. So the parent is hosting the child, somebody's clicking, child is reacting to the parent that hey, Angular is clicked, and then parent is filtering the data to show it here. Okay, now the start button has to be disabled if it is 0. So let's do that. So I go here and I will look for the start button here. So what we will do is, if the start button needs to be disabled, so I will say property disabled. Okay, when I wanted to disable, if the course count is not 0, I mean if the course count is 0, I will disable it. So the question count, so when I will disable the course dot question count, if the question count is more than 0, don't disable it, or else disable it. So let's go back, let's do this. Right now everything is coming. If you look at this, if I keep scrolling down, wherever the 0 is there, see the button got disabled automatically. Okay, you understand? So that's how it works. So only to filter out all the available questions, this is what we are doing. So this looks good, and that's it as of this video. So just remember, whenever we do this UI, CSS are already in place. You need to understand the logic, and you need to implement the same thing in your way, so that you can learn as per the series. Okay, so I hope you enjoy this video. If you like this video, don't forget to like don't forget to hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed to the Telegram group, do subscribe to the Telegram group, and where we can chat in live. And stay tuned. I will see you in the next video. We will be exploring Azure AD B2C concepts and integrate the authentication authorization mechanism in Angular and .NET Core. Alright guys, I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more tech tutorials. And don't forget to hit the bell icon to get notified when we post new videos. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave them in the comments below. Happy coding!